Pelagiad, a humble farming community safely nested near the gorgeous lake Amaya. In case anyone's still wondering, this isn't Cyrodiil or High Rock, but Morrowind. More precisely, the barren volcanic island of Vardenfell. But everything about Pelagiad, including its name, is typically Western. It's a piece of the Empire set deep within the hostile territory, thus surrounded by constant threat.
Speak freely, friend.
Yet the town itself is remarkably peaceful and, on the surface, seems untroubled by the ongoing tribulations. You know, the Blight, Great House conflicts, unrest in Cyrodiil, Fargoth's daily shakedowns. Morrowind is in some deep, troubled waters. But step into Pelagiad and, at least for a moment, all's well. Ironically, there is a lot I could say about Pelagiad, a town famous for, well, not having so much to offer. Pelagiad is one of those places that are often overlooked in favor of more important, busier centers, like Balmora or Aldrun. In fact, I'd bet that most players visit it once, randomly while passing through, and then simply forget that it's even there. So today I want to shine some light on this peaceful town and uncover any potential secrets or interesting details. Overall, Pelagiad is one of my favorite towns, and I also find it interesting from the world-building perspective. The way these insignificant, detached settlements enrich game's narrative, atmosphere, and overall immersion. I mean, this may sound funny, but in my playthroughs, I often give my characters time to rest, especially after some grand adventure. And Pelagiad is one of my most popular go-to destinations. It's a place to enjoy friendly chatter with random, normal characters.
You may speak.
Seen any elves?
Get out of here before I summon the authorities.
Did you forget your clothes?
Repair my armor, recharge, walk by the lake. Just watch for those pesky mud crabs. In short, Pelagiad provides a sense of normalcy amidst the fiery chaos that is Morrowind in the closing days of the Third Era. And to make things a little bit more fun, Pelagiad is not so immune to corruption, and things are not as ideal as they seem to be, as we're gonna see. So stick around as we journey once again to the wondrous land of Morrowind. It's time to see why Pelagiad is actually amazing and shouldn't be ignored. My name is Alec, and I hope you'll enjoy today's video. So let's talk about Pelagiad's location first, because I believe that even the way players are meant to discover the town is masterfully executed. Or maybe I'm giving Bethesda too much credit, but knowing that Morrowind was entirely handcrafted by a handful of talented people, I like to believe that every detail in-game is intentional. And Pelagiad's recognizable layout was already researched in the concept art. So, upon starting the game in Seydonin, player is advised to visit Balmora and seek Caius Cusades. We all know that. But we're also offered a choice of travel. We can go there via Siltstrider, Morrowind's fast travel mechanic, or simply walk there. And although
why walk when you can ride?
Sounds incredibly fun. In this case, I prefer walking, because Pelagiad lies just over the hill and is very likely to be every player's next encountered settlement. But what I like is that road doesn't just lead us into the town. Pelagiad's pleasing, welcoming view is revealed in the short distance from the main road, slowly opening up as we approach the crossroad. It's almost inviting us in, as it stretches into the safety of an imperial fort through a single wide street. There is something enigmatic, but also comforting and even nostalgic in this view. It's that warm feeling of discovering a small village in any role-playing game. A village that seems so familiar even though we've never been there. It's not surprising then that even Bethesda decided to use this exact shot on the official box art. Although another reason could be to remind veteran players that Morrowind is a sequel to Daggerfall. And what better way to invoke that nostalgia than placing a Daggerfall-like settlement on the box art. And also there's a construction set tutorial video done by none other than Todd Howard.
Just click on things to select them and you can zoom all the way out. Look at this town.
Back in 2001, so prior to the release of Morrowind. And again, Todd decided to showcase the wonders of modding tools right here in Pelagiad. Alright, so is there some kind of a larger Pelagiad conspiracy? Is it secretly Todd's favorite town? Could be, but I'd rather guess that it's all about the familiarity and warmth that Pelagiad has to offer. Familiarity to Daggerfall, previous Elder Scrolls game, but also to wider fantasy role-playing audience. In a lack of better terms, Pelagiad is a piece of generic fantasy surrounded by an alien world of tree-sized mushrooms, floating jellyfishes and such. Unfamiliar aspects that are kinda tucked away in the back of the cover art. But also there's a wonderful simplicity in Pelagiad's urban planning. As we said, town is dominated by a single wide street descending down the hill from a castle or a fort, giving it a strong focus or a center. It instantly gives away a feeling of safety and authority. Now, as for the history of Pelagiad, there isn't much to say, as prior to the year 414 of the Third Era, Wardenfell was mostly an uninhabited wasteland. There were some Ashlander tribes, and most of the land was owned by Tribunal Temple and strictly closed to any kind of colonization. And the larger cities like Balmora, Aldrune, and obviously Vivec, well, they existed as military outposts or religious centers. So Pelagiad couldn't be founded before year 414, especially with it being an imperial fortification. And as game is taking place in the year 427, it gives Pelagiad little more than a decade. Not enough time to develop into a major urban center, but enough to settle a small farming community. And through in-game dialogues we learn more about the town's origin. First, there was a Fort Pelagiad, placed in this strategic location to guard the roads between Vivec and Seydanin on the south and Balmora on the north. Legion veterans then began building farms around it, and soon after there were traders setting up shops and taverns, attracting local commoners in search of jobs and safety, building eventually a decent-sized town. It's actually pretty impressive just how much Imperials managed to build and take over in this relative short span of time. Within barely 13 years, there were at least 7 fully functional forts, and fully established towns like Caldera, based around the rich ebony mine, and Pelagiad, not to mention New Ebonheart, a seat of imperial authority on Wardenfell. And on top of that, we have imperial cult, spreading the divine faith among the Ashlanders in most distant, inhospitable corners of the island. It makes me wonder what would Wardenfell look like if the threads of fate hadn't been severed by the Red Year, but I digress. Now it's time to walk the streets of Pelagiad, or a street, and meet the locals. One of my favorite characters is found here. Meet Ygfa.
Ho! What's your pleasure?
She can be found inside the fort, serving the imperial cult and selling a variety of restoration-based spells.
What makes this smell?
If you, like me, consider School of Restoration not only perfectly valid, but one of the most valuable and practical skills in-game, and if you enjoy insanely detailed world building told through walls of text dialogue, then Ygfa is your MVP. You see, Ygfa isn't just selling a number of protective healing spells that will make your upcoming journey across the disease-ridden Wardenfell somewhat more safer. She can also teach us a unique, powerful turn undead spell with 100 points efficiency at a cost of only 5 magicka points. It's actually ridiculous, and only possible downside of this spell is that it's not governed by any school of magic, so using it won't actually level up any of the skills.
You want something, friend?
But this isn't all. Experienced Morrowind players will know that game has several highly knowledgeable NPCs spread across the world. Characters that can teach us about certain aspects of the Elder Scrolls universe. I always loved discovering them and enjoyed reading all that ridiculously, some would say even unnecessarily detailed lore. But that's exactly what made Morrowind so weird and fun to play. Well, Ygfa is a seasoned healer, adept of the Imperial cult, and she can teach us about pretty much any disease, attribute, school of magic, and even potions in-game. It's a true wealth of knowledge, available to the player right at the start of the adventure. On the other hand, Ygfa isn't directly involved with any quest, nor does she offer training. I'd say that if she could at least train restoration skill, it would round up her character quite well. And if she had a quest for us, Ygfa would belong right in the Hall of Fame, next to such giants like Fargot or Ahnassi.
Spuma.
Oh, did I just mention Ahnassi? Only character in Morrowind that kinda becomes players' love interest?
Warm day to you.
You know, with things like sharing a house, items, bed. Well, she also lives in Pelagiad. Ahnassi is a female Khajiit and is initially found in Halfway Tavern. By the way, this tavern is not surprisingly a center of most activities in Pelagiad, so we will stay here for a while. In particular, there's an unusual amount of romancing going on here, giving Pelagiad a more romantic touch. As mentioned, Ahnassi is a potential partner to any male character with sufficient speechcraft skill. And she also has her own questline, mostly dealing with shady characters and thievery. Ahnassi is, after all, a member of the Thieves Guild. I gotta be honest, first time playing Ahnassi's questline, I wasn't even sure what was going on most of the time. And it's mostly because of her dialogue. It's so bizarre, charmingly enigmatic. All that Khajiit talk about sharing gift and becoming a special and then a very special friend. It all seemed so strange. And I never actually used her house after receiving the key. But yeah, adding a huge bonus point to Pelagiad is the truly unique romancing experience. But perhaps the biggest Pelagiad's love story is between a local rogue, Nelos Onmar, and Mori, a naive Breton noble girl. It's one of those unforgettable moments in game, meeting a young lady in despair down the road, just north of Pelagiad.
What can I help you with?
She was robbed by handsome Dunmer, and instead of wanting her jewelry back, she will ask us to deliver one of her gloves to him, as a token of her love.
Please, I cannot live without knowing if he could ever love me.
Nelos is of course found in tavern, having a drink after a hard day of work.
You may speak.
And after initial shock, he'll write a note to Mori. Mori, truly I was enchanted with you from the moment I saw you. I beg your forgiveness for my past transgressions. While I cannot imagine what a woman of your beauty and breeding would see in a rogue such as me, I thank the gods that you have sent for me. I will come to you as soon as I can. Until then, yours, Nelos. Isn't that sweet? And best part is that soon after finishing the quest, both Nelos and Mori will disappear from the game, apparently running away, hopefully far away from Morrowind, if they planned a long, happy life together.
Let me relieve you of the burden of your coin.
There's actually another very similar and equally famous Dunmer rogue, Nels Lando, found also on the road, but this time south of Pelagiad. It almost makes me think that they have a deal going on, with Nelos covering north and Nels south of Pelagiad. And Nels Lando is someone I already talked about in a video on Morrowind's 5 interesting bandits. So I'll just mention that he too has a small pseudo-romancing role. And by that I mean that if player's character is female, he will offer or rather demand a kiss and a friendship. If we let him live, Nels will return to Halfway Tavern and act as our friend regardless of gender, and as a small bonus, offer training services.
I am never too busy for a good talk.
So in total 3 more or less romantic stories, all tied in with Pelagiad and the Halfway Tavern. Sprinkle in a cat girl, pardon me, Khajiit, offering to wrestle us in the privacy of her home, handsome Dunmer rogues, naive Breton girls, and you got yourself a whole show. Moving on, there's a rather mysterious and turns out very dark figure, also found in tavern, although remaining in the privacy of a room, as if she is hiding. A Nord sorcerer, Hrodis. In fact, our special friend Ahnassi will have this to say about her. This Hrodis, this thing she has, it is a very strange belt. Magic, very much magic. And Ahnassi knows more. That Hrodis visit the Al Sota near Vivek city, and more. Ahnassi makes her business to know some things, and one thing she knows, this Al Sota ruin, this is where they worship Mehrunes Dagon. Do you believe this? Ahnassi does not care so much. Gods are gods, but this Mehrunes Dagon, is he not very cruel, very evil? And Ahnassi is of course correct. However, Hrodis isn't only a mere Dagonite, meaning a worshipper of Mehrunes Dagon, but also a member of Dark Brotherhood. Something she openly admits if we succeed talking to her, which is a little bit difficult and almost considered a cheat. If we enter her previously locked room, Hrodis won't be hostile, but she will refuse any dialogue unless we trick the game mechanic. Like standing nude in front of her.
You look ridiculous. Cover yourself.
And then, if we have an unlocked option to ask about Mehrunes Dagon, this is her rather amusing response.
That is a beautiful name. Far too beautiful a name to be found in the mouth of a contemptible worm like you. It will give me great pleasure to beat that beautiful name right out of your maggoty mouth.
She really took it personally. And magic belt Ahnassi was mentioning is Belt of Sanguine Fleetness, one of the 27 sanguine items that player has to collect for Morag Tong. And out of those 27 items, 26 are scattered across Wardenfell, being mostly in possession of Dark Brotherhood members and Dagonite cultists. So Hrodis owns one such Daedric item and is known to frequently visit Al Sota. But at the moment, she is staying at Halfway Tavern in Pelagiad. So let's try to figure out why. And this is where things get even more mysterious. You see, Al Sota, found east of Vivek, serves also as Dark Brotherhood's headquarters. Their leader and Night Mother, an imperial woman, Severa Magia, resides there, together with a group of highly dangerous cultists and Daedra. Now, in a seemingly unrelated quest issued by Balmora's Mages Guild, we are tasked with escorting a traveling mage from Balmora to Pelagiad, specifically to Halfway Tavern. Sometimes I give these simple quests too much attention and afterthought, I admit, but the whole point of my videos is to overanalyze, and we are doing just that. Why such a knowledgeable Altmer scholar, Itermerel, going to such a boring place, at least for someone like him? Pelagiad doesn't have anything to do with magic. If he was heading to Vivek, on the other hand, and simply wanted to stop by in Pelagiad, then he would demand an escort all the way through. No, Itermerel, an expert in the metaphysics of oblivion, was heading precisely to Pelagiad to meet someone in the Halfway Tavern. Even in his dialogue, he specifically mentions having no interest in seeing the rest of Wardenfell. So, Itermerel came to Wardenfell through some means of fast travel, most likely teleportation, only to visit Pelagiad, and we do know that he isn't familiar with the province, because of Rhanis Atris's line that Itermerel doesn't know his way around.
Itermerel has just arrived in Balmora and doesn't know his way around.
Combined with the fact that he doesn't want to see rest of Wardenfell is enough proof for me that Itermerel really came all the way here just to meet someone in Pelagiad. And who could that be? Who else if not Hrodis? And just to make things a little bit more complicated, there's another sorcerer staying at the tavern, a bossmer named Samia. And what's peculiar, or not, is that Samia isn't involved in any quest, nor does she have any unique dialogue. She is simply there, standing for the entire game. If I'm to give Samia any kind of assignment, my guess will be that she is with Hordes, simply waiting downstairs for Itermerel in order to take him to the room upstairs. Hordes is obviously hiding, or trying to stay low, and the presence of another Thieves Guild member just outside her door could mean that she's actually being followed. After all, Ahnassi, a fellow Thieves Guild member, knows about Hordes, which means that Thieves Guild knows about her. So if we look at the whole picture, there's this interesting dynamic, a full-on espionage going on between Thieves Guild, Morag, Dark Brotherhood, and Dagonite cultists. But conspiracy has to go deeper, as I'm not quite satisfied with this conclusion, and I really need a drink now. You see, Itermerel carries an obscure note, and this piece of paper seems to be very important. Even Mages Guild steward, a high-ranking wizard, will demand it. And just for the sake of it, let's read the note first, since it's not that long. Notes on the persistence of Oblivion streams. The variable flow of Daedrons in Oblivion streams can have profound effects on the magicka potential of various locations. Magicka use often causes effects on the streams themselves. By reconfiguring the polarity of the Daedron fields, it is possible to manipulate and trace the streams in the following cases. And this is the only readable part of the note. Apparently it goes on and on. It sounds like random rambling about some deeply arcane topic, but what got my attention is the mention of Daedrons, which sounds very much like a particle, as well as the existence of Daedron fields. To keep it simple, in my opinion, it sounds like it might be related to, well, opening portals to Oblivion. I know it sounds far-fetched, and perhaps it is, but this note always sounded to me that way, like it was a research into, well, connecting with the realms of Oblivion. So, could it be that a scholar known for specializing in Oblivion metaphysical studies was invited to a secret meeting in a small, remote location, like Pelagiad, with the Dagonite cult? Perhaps Itermerel wasn't even aware of the fact that he is about to meet some really shady people, expecting maybe some fellow scholars interested in his studies. I mean, Itermerel sounds innocent, and although secretive about his notes at first, he is more than willing to share a copy with us after successfully arriving Pelagiad. And adding to that, Itermerel is more than a capable mage. Throughout our journey, he easily one-shotted pretty much any hostile creature. Wow, I could instead hire him to be my bodyguard. I mean, he obviously didn't need any actual protection, he only wanted a guide to Pelagiad. So the next question is, why would Dagonites be interested in researching Oblivion particles, Daedron fields and things of such nature? Well, if you played Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion, which is set only 6 years after the events of Morrowind, you'd know. Wait a minute, am I suggesting that Morrowind's Dark Brotherhood branch, that also teamed up with the Mehun's Dagon cult, has a connection to the Mythic Dawn, a fellow Dagonite cult? I certainly am. I mean, even their leader is an Imperial. They're obviously connected to Cyrodiil. It's Elder Scrolls, anything goes. It could simply be a small, really subtle hint of the things to come, implying that Bethesda already knew the plotline of the next Elder Scrolls. And the Mythic Dawn itself existed since the days of Tiber Septim, at least. So they were around the time of Morrowind. And perhaps they were simply gathering all the esoteric knowledge regarding Oblivion realms. But let's move on. I'd like to mention one more character found in the Halfway Tavern, Yakum Her Shashishi. And Yakum is fun because, not of his last name, but because he's one of the rare Ashlanders who decided to leave the nomadic lifestyle behind and settle in one of the towns. And if our character has a low speechcraft, we actually won't be able to talk to Yakum.
Hello, Yakum. Speak Ashland. Old elf, not so good speak.
Since he still uses native Ashland dialect instead of the old elf, how he calls main or official Dunmer dialect. And that's something I honestly didn't even know about until I met this guy. It'd be fun to see this mechanic implemented across the entire game, having Ashlanders speak their native dialect, and requiring high enough speechcraft to even understand them. Now, there's an actual quest that leads the player to Pelagiad, and is about freeing a Thieves Guild member, New Shoes Bragger, from the prison in Fort Pelagiad. It's obviously a Thieves Guild job, and it reveals a secret smuggling operation right in the heart of the town. And one of the players involved is this Breton trader, Mebestian, whose shop is found right across the halfway tavern. He's actually one of the best traders, especially in the early stages of the game, and judging from the look of his shop, business must be really good. Well, there's an actual secret to him, as Mebestian, in fact, smuggles Dwemer artifacts.
My prices are the best in town.
And at least in Morrowind, this is a big no-no. One of the illegal Dwemer items can be found in a locked chest on the upper floor.
I resent your implications. I am an honest merchant.
But it's also funny how Mebestian plays innocent to the very end. Even after finding a Dwemer artifact in his house, he even threatens to call a guard. And to release the prisoner, all we had to do is confront a corrupt Imperial guard and a local smith, Shadbak Gra Burbug, who's been taking regular bribes from Mebestian. It's a really nice, simple plot, adding a layer of corruption to an otherwise seemingly innocent, idyllic town, filled with romantic storylines and possible Dagonite plots. By the way, I even find the local commander of the fort, Itermerel, little bit suspicious. You see, Fort Pelagiad is the only fort devoid of any quest, and when approached, Itermerel will have this to say.
Things have been very quiet here. Sorry, no pressing business.
But what's weird is that Pelagiad is in fact surrounded with at least 3 caves filled with smugglers, as the very Lake Amaya seemed to be a haven for smuggling activities. So it kinda sounds to me like Itermerel just wants us out of here, as he has to be aware of all the banditry going on. I mean, even those Dunmer rogues in the halfway tavern are locally famous, robbing travelers in broad daylight, yet none of the guards are doing what should be their job, protecting the roads.
Keep moving.
And Itermerel's private quarters look quite luxurious. Again, I'm not claiming it's all 100% true, but in these games, player often has to observe the surroundings and look for clues, and that's what I love about Morrowind. There are so many things left open for interpretation, some of it obviously due to game's limited old engine, but also at this point it's honestly Bethesda's trademark. Regardless of everything, I still find Pelagiad as an ideal vacation town.
Yes?
There's something cozy about meeting Ygfa, learning a couple of spells from her, listening to her lectures about various diseases and cures, chatting with the flamboyant Mebestian about the illegal Dwemer artifacts, releasing petty prisoners from the keep.
I hope you won't take too much of my time.
Pelagiad also teaches us that in Morrowind, interesting secret things aren't always hidden away in some dark, forgotten ruin, but played out right in front of our nose, in a place least expected to offer such an experience. With everything said and done, it's also sad knowing this town would thrive only for a couple of decades, if even that long. It adds a bit of melancholy to this quiet, green commune of southern Wardenfell. Well, it's time to leave the town and look for another interesting story. I hope you enjoyed our little tour around Pelagiad. Let me know what other settlements would you like to see covered in similar fashion. And until then, thank you for watching.